Okay, I'd like to call the Zionsville Safety Board meeting on March 17th, 2025 to order. We are missing two of our members, but taking attendance. Joe Stein is present, Evan Norris is present, and I am present, but Jeff Papa and Val Swack are missing. We need to do an approval of the minutes from the January 21st, 2025 Zionsville Safety Meeting. Can I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of the January 21st, 2025 Zionsville Safety Board meeting.
And I will second that.
With our quorum, we will vote. All in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, passes 3-0. We are now going to have the fire department give us our monthly report.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. If I could this morning, what I'd like to do is take some time and recognize some of our employees. The last 30, 45 days have been rather busy and exciting. We always like to respect those individuals who are performing for our department. And this past February 22nd, we held our 25th Zionsville Fire Department Annual Firefighters Ball and Awards Program. We had nearly 190 people attend this year. It was a great event, and these events don't happen without corporate sponsorships who help pay for that. So I'd like to recognize Ascension St. Vincent Health, McQueen Fire Apparatus, our own local 5195 financially contributed to that program to make it a success, as well as MES, Valiant Primary Care, Protein Tactical, Pearson Ford, and Hearst Beans. During that program, our annual of the year awards were presented to probationary firefighter of the year Andrew Scholten, our EMT of the year Luca Skutterzink, our paramedic of the year was Jeremy Anker, and our Cody Richardson firefighter of the year was Lieutenant Ben Box. Also at that awards ceremony, there was a civilian life-saving award given to Cash Coiner, who was a young gentleman just graduating high school who recognized one of his friends was having more than just a simple bloody nose and actually turned out to be a brain bleed that we needed to rush and have surgical intervention, and the outcome was extremely positive. But really a great night recognizing him. Also, Local 5195 does an annual leadership award, and that was presented that evening to Captain Robert Coonfield. And then also Captain Elliot Russell at Fire Station 93 celebrated his 30 years of service to our community. So it was a wonderful evening on February 22nd. Also, immediately following that, shortly thereafter, we recognized Lieutenant Mitch Young, who received the Boone County Emergency Provider of the Year Award, and that was presented at the annual Boone County Chamber of Commerce awards program on March 6th. And that award is sponsored by the Lebanon Rotary Club. So we congratulate Lieutenant Mitch Young. This past week, actually on Friday, was the FIAI, which is the Fire Inspectors Association of Indiana, held their annual program over in Noblesville. And our entire fire prevention team, consisting of Josh Frost, Ron Lips, Chris Betzner, Vince Randolph, and a former intern of ours, Aiden Wetter, were all recognized for their service to the Inspectors Association that past year, and they all received a President's Award for their participation. Two other items I'd like to make note for this board is keeping you informed of other boards related to the fire department and their activity. This past week, 2 weeks ago, the Fire Department Pension Board met on March 5th. And again, our pension board is that board that reviews and approves candidates for employment and screenings and things of that nature. So they had a meeting and they reviewed a candidate. They did not approve that candidate for hiring. So we go back to our list and we review another candidate, send them out for medical and psychological testing. Chief Gibbons will talk about why we're moving forward with this hiring, but we've had a vacancy occur. Yes, sir.
Can you explain the difference between the pension board and the merit board?
Yes, and I'll defer to Heather if I misspeak here, but our pension board really approves those individuals for hiring and what some of those standards are. The merit board takes care of all of the disciplinary process, as well as the promotions will approve those things. And that's the next board I was going to speak to.
Yeah, I apologize, because I saw pension board come through on the town's notices 2 weeks ago, and I was like, is this the merit board or the pension? Thank you.
Nope. And it is new. You're right. This is new to the fire department, new to the town of Zionsville and stuff. We've been working, John Oberlander, who serves as the attorney for the Merit Commission, And I have been working with those 5 individuals to get a meeting scheduled. We found difficulty trying to get everybody's schedules aligned, but I am happy to report that they'll have their first meeting on April the 7th. Where they'll do their swearing in, their oath of office, approve their bylaws, and then they'll begin to meet as needed, probably quarterly to start off with, and if there's need for them to meet any more frequently, they can add meetings to their schedule. But on April the 7th, they will have their first meeting.
Got it. Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions on either the awards or those various boards. If not, I have with me this morning Deputy Chief of Administration Jason Potts and Deputy Chief of Operations Aaron Gibbons to walk us through the next 3 components of the monthly report. So if there are no questions, I'll ask Deputy Chief Jason Potts to come forward and talk about our insurance audit update.
Morning.
Good morning. In your package, you'll see a VIFS, who's our carrier for insurance for the fire department. A couple weeks ago, we had a meeting with them, along with Chief Van Gorder, myself, our Captain of Planning, Elizabeth Campbell, HR Director, Joe Keel, and also Angie Agers from the HR department. The purpose of that meeting was really to have a complete risk review in order to evaluate our existing risk control practices and help identify potential loss exposures relating to emergency vehicle operations and employment practices. Part of the setup for this meeting was that packet that you have included. That was also in that packet is really our answers. During that meeting, we provided them with all the information that they requested, and then we spent about 2.5 hours doing an interview process back and forth, kind of going more in depth with that process. One of the things we really went over was they wanted to confirm really our demographics, our size of the area we serve, our response, the number of drivers that we have, our training that we have for the drivers, being able to provide the documentation of really showing them how our firefighters progress through that training. And then really review our policies and our response. If something were to occur, how do we go through the process of evaluating the accident, and then if any processes as far as a violation of policy occurs, how do we deal with those? Then the last little bit of that was really a copy of our maintenance records, our annual inspections for our ladders, documenting that we do carry all the information for the weights of our vehicles. So everything that we would need in preparation for, if we did have an accident, we would be prepared to be able to provide all that information correctly and timely in response to really mitigating our risk from the insurance side.
Was personnel a topic of discussion during this, the VFIS?
Not as a matter of a firefighting force, but really just a matter of how we train, as far as how do we train them to be prepared to drive and operate our vehicles specific to what they cover as far as insurance.
Got it.
One of the things I would add, just for a bit of clarification here, this is different than the ISO Insurance Service Organization or anything else that may look at some of those staffing components or number of quantity. This is our insurance provider coming in and really looking at. We also ran loss report over the years. Our local agent, Todd Settle from Zionsville Insurance, was there with us along the way. We were complimented on our minimal or not that much of a loss to look at over the years, but we did actually review individual losses, and they made some minor recommendations. Their final report we'd hope to have today to share with you. We don't have that, but as soon as we do receive that, we'll present that at one of the upcoming safety board meetings.
Sounds great.
That was really the last part. They're going to provide us with a report back. The meeting itself was very, very favorable. They were very happy with the fact that we could go back and review the incidents, the claims that we've had over the last 5 years, talk about what happened and what we've done to help resolve those issues. So if you have any more questions for me, happy to take them.
Is this a 5-year review?
They did a 5-year review on our claims, but really I think we've done this about every 10 years or so.
Not very frequently. In 28 years, I've only done it twice.
Got it.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Apologize for my voice this morning. I'm going to do my best to get through it.
That time of year.
It is. So first, Chief Van Gorder mentioned the fact that we had the local pension board meet to discuss a potential new hire. Just wanted to share with the safety board that we did receive a resignation from one of our firefighters, firefighter Kaya Warner, resigned from the fire department effective March 9th. And we accepted that. He, just to shared with us that he was leaving for another fire department that is a little bit busier than we are, and it's one of those we really can't control the runs that we go on. Was very complimentary of everything that he was either provided or given while here at Zionsville. And personally, I have a relationship with him, and it's one of those that I know that our relationship with him will continue to be positive. So wanted to share that. Also wanted to share just a brief update. I know last meeting I discussed the recruits that are in our academy, joint academy with Pike Township Fire Department. That joint academy has made its way through the EMT portion. They completed that 2 weeks ago, and then this past Monday they began the 13 weeks of the firefighting portion or the fire portion of the fire school. So our cadre, we've got 2 people assigned to that academy. They have 2 people assigned to that academy. They work jointly through the fire portion. That's also supported by us sending on-duty crews and additional personnel to make sure they're able to get all the training they need. But as long as everything goes according to the schedule, which normally it does in the Recruit Academy, we should be seeing those recruits graduate from Pike Township's Recruit Academy on June 6th is their targeted graduation date.
Deputy Chief Gibbons,
Yeah.
so how many total recruits do we have in the academy right now?
We have 5.
5. Got
5
it.
recruits in the academy. Pike Township also has 5, so it's a class of 10. But we would see 5 additional people on the streets in June. There'll be a few weeks of onboarding, if you will, and acclimatization to Zionsville. We'll really see them on our trucks probably the first week of July.
Okay.
Any additional questions on that? Awesome. Jason, do you mind?
Are you rolling into financials?
Negative.
Okay.
I'm rolling into, I'm only going to give them one at a time to not bombard them. So last time we met, I shared some staffing outlooks with you all, and I've updated these. So first, what I wanted to give you guys a little glimpse into is what our current staffing is today. So this is a 21-day pay cycle that we are going through right now. And just like last time, anywhere you see yellow, we are staffing under the industry standard for that given apparatus. Anywhere you see green, we are meeting the staffing. Anywhere you see red, that is where we are mandatoring people to work overtime to fill those roles. You'll see in this little snapshot here, and that's one thing I do want to share. This is if everybody were healthy on the trucks out there, and everybody, there is no consideration for anybody not being in their current role. So looking at this snapshot, you'll see across the bottom as well, the total number of firefighters given for a day. You'll not see a single one of those days green, so we are not meeting the staffing needs for any single day for the 21-day cycle. Any questions on our current staffing?
Yeah, so for probably the public's knowledge and education, I'm looking at something here, like, it looks like for the vast majority of days shown on here, that even 291, like, we should be operating with at least 8 firefighters on both the ladder and the engine, right?
Correct.
And
4 on each.
Or 4 on each.
Correct.
And part of the issue here is that, I see a day where we have 5 people instead of 8, right? 8's the standard.
Correct.
Some days we're operating with 5 people, some days we're operating with 6, and only a handful we're operating with 7. We're never actually operating at 291 specifically. We're never operating with 8 people, are we?
Correct. On those 2 apparatus, that's correct. Yes.
It's just something, with Senate Bill 1 coming down the pipeline, I guess I want this body to be, very cognizant of everything going on, especially with our staffing needs. What do you see the outlook being like with these 5 firefighters in the Pike Township?
Well, thank you for leading me into my
Okay,
next,
we did not prepare for this, I swear.
Glad we set that up, and I've been So just as requested, I went ahead and went out to 21 days out into July.
Thank you.
This is the week, or I'm sorry, the 21-day cycle between July 13th and August the 2nd. And this is just a glimpse into what our staffing will look like once we get the 5 that are in the Recruit Academy out. The one thing that I do want to make sure we're clear on the 5, and I believe you all are aware, because I believe we discussed it last meeting, is the 5 is really only 3 plus positive for the shift, because we had a promotion of Division Chief of EMS, Tad Henderson, that was from the companies, as well as the Captain of Planning, Elizabeth Campbell, was from the companies. So those were 2 positions that were approved to be internal promotions. So yes, we gained 5 in the academy, but really it's a net gain of 3. So just to share and be transparent on what that 5 number is. But looking now at the 21-day cycle in front of you here, you'll see it's slightly improved. The one improvement is there's not currently, and once again, I want to put the asterisk on it, this is with everybody healthy. But there is not currently any days that we're mandatoring anybody for overtime in July. The point previously, though, is there's also a lot of days where we are running at the minimum or with 3 on our suppression apparatus or on our ladder. And then looking across that bottom row yet again, there's only 1 day in the 21 days where we are actually meeting the industry standard for staffing. And once again, that could change with 1 person going down with an injury. Any questions on that one?
Just have a general overall question, and forgive me for not knowing the answer to this. How does PTO time off play into this?
So it's included in these looks. We have what's called a Kelly Day. So in a 21-day cycle, every one of our firefighters is given a day, or they choose a day that they don't ever work that day when it falls on their shift. And then also their PTO usage. We have internal rules that allow a certain number of people off. Obviously, we can't allow everybody on the shift to take off, so they play into those rules, if you will, where we can allow a certain number off. So the snapshot you are seeing here is including everybody following those rules, if you will, as far as what our time off usage as well as our Kelly Day usage
Sure,
is.
thank you. That's where I was going.
Yeah, the one thing I would just call, and Chief Gibbons has done a great job of highlighting, but he talks about the firefighters not being injured, all being healthy. We celebrate, well, we're actually not celebrating now because we have 1 currently off on light duty, but we see that number grow all the way up to 3 to 5 at any one given time. So we're at a low point right now, and these sheets do not anticipate or not project any injuries, and that's either line of duty or civilian. You know, we've had firefighters go off on vacation, enjoy themselves, and injure themselves on a UTV ride. Well, now they're out for the next 6 months as they go through rehabilitation. We've also had firefighters that may have injured themselves and have to go in for knee or shoulder surgery on the job. None of those numbers are projected because that is all over the board, but we've seen at the peak 3 to 5 firefighters off. Very infrequently do we see ourselves at 0, and actually about 2-3 weeks ago, we celebrated for 2 weeks. We had everybody was active and able to go to work. And then as soon as that occurred, we had an individual that had to go in and have a spinal procedure done. And now they're out for the next 6 months. So those are some of the challenges that are not projected here. And I think the other thing we wanted to do, and I asked Chief Gibbons to prepare, and this is the last report he'll share, is over the past 4 to 8 years, I don't think we did a good job, or I didn't do as good a job communicating what the need was. And you've heard us talk over the years about the 12. We were short 12 firefighters, Well, we got the 3 that he just referred to, so now we're down to 9. So what I've asked him to do is prepare one final report that he'll share with you, and that kind of shows you what would it look like if we were able to add these 9 other positions. Doesn't get us green everywhere, but it does begin to make a substantial improvement in our staffing. And we are very much aware of Senate Bill 1, watching what's going on, realizing that achieving this in a 2026 budget year is not maybe a reality, but seeing what we can do to try and make incremental steps to try and get to this. And that's the staffing levels at our neighboring communities, Carmel, Fishers, things of that nature. This is what their normal staffing would look like. Chief Gibbons, sorry.
No, you're fine.
And this is 9, if
So-
we add another 9.
So this is, if we had got the full request of the 12 firefighters that we said we need, this is a look at what the staffing would truly look like if, so right now, we're gonna get net yield 3 out of the academy. If we were yielding 12 out of the recruit academy, this is what our staffing would look like. Once again, with the same mattresses that we just mentioned. So really, the thing to look here is the 12 gets us a lot better, especially if you compare the 21 days that we're looking at, that we're currently in, the first sheet that I shared with you, with the amount of yellow or the amount of days that we're running at minimum, and the one spot where we have a mandatory overtime spot. But also what this shows you as well is the 12 isn't the end. And that's with our current staffing today, that's with no additional apparatus. It helps a lot. We obviously go to the point where we have about 7 days that we're running below the industry standard or below full staff. But also, you got to look on the other side of that. It's about 14 days that we're actually running full staff, which is where we really need to be.
I guess it should be highlighted as well that with these staffing shortages comes not only that we're not able to put the right number of people on our apparatuses, but this places further stress on our already active firefighters, right? Because they're working continuously and they're filling in these gaps. And I know that that President Sampson, you did the firefighter, the intensive academy, and then we did the
Fire Ops 101.
Fire Ops 101, the shortened version, the one-day version. And I mean, I can tell you that if I had to do 3 or 4 runs like that, a car, a paramedic, I was exhausted. I was exhausted that day, and it was pretty light because we weren't really carrying anything. Like you guys did all the work. We just had to throw on the gear and do the scenario. So
And that's where that one extra set of hands on each apparatus goes so far, and especially if you get a working incident like a house fire, that one extra person on each of our trucks does make the job a little bit lighter. Doesn't solve it. Obviously, there's still a lot of hard work to be done, but that on the other side of that is as soon as you lose one firefighter on every apparatus, how much harder is that? And then how much more frequent are we asking them to work overtime, kind of to your point, is that much more exhausting as well.
right, especially if you think about a rural fire, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, because we're lucky in the town to have fire hydrants, but then I'm being told that if we have a rural fire out in western Zionsville, that, I mean, we got to get water trucks out there, and it's more people on deck for something like that.
Absolutely.
Can you tell, just for my purposes, what does it look like, say, when 291 makes a run 2 men short? What practically happens in that case?
So obviously depends on the call. A quick example is so let's say 291s is going to a house fire in their district, and they're arriving, and there's only 3 on the fire engine, there's only 3 on the ladder truck, and then obviously you have the ambulance that has 2 people on it and a battalion chief. So when they arrive, instead, I'll just run the scenario if they have 3. The driver of those 2 apparatus, the engine and the ladder, they're not going in to fight fire. They have to, the engineer on that truck has to pump water to the hose to make sure that the guys can put water on the fire. The driver of the ladder truck's gonna either one of 2 things, start throwing ground ladders, so that way that there's ladders to second floor windows for our firefighters or for victims, or they're gonna get the ladder off of the truck into the residence if needed. So really what you're talking about is now you have 2 firefighters trying to pull a hose line into the house or wherever the structure is to put the fire out. Then you have 2 firefighters going to search for any victims that may or may not be in there. The 2 firefighters on the ambulance, they may join either the engine or the ladder if there's not a patient, but if there's a patient there, obviously now their hands are tied to, they're gonna take care of the patient and head to the hospital. The battalion chief that runs out of Station 291, they're gonna oversee the entire incident, so they're gonna basically be the coach, if you will, that's calling the shots. The other side of that is if there's 4 on those trucks, well, now you obviously have the drivers have to do their same jobs. Well, now how much quicker and how much more safe is it for 3 firefighters to pull a hose line, get it to where the fire is and put the fire out, or 3 firefighters to go find any victims that may be inside of that residence? And then obviously how much more efficient can 3 people move somebody that may be unconscious, either down some stairs or down a ladder versus 2? It's night and day difference having that one extra person, whether it's getting a hose line in place to put the fire out or rescuing a victim that may be found in there.
Yeah, I remember dragging a 110-pound body out of that. I've almost went into cardiac arrest myself, so, and that was with 3 of us, so.
And the one thing that I'll share is unfortunately, most of our patients aren't 110 pounds. That's
Yeah,
just
right.
not the
That
society.
was a light one.
That's just-
That was a child.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've just talked through I've talked through these scenarios with the local, and they've given me all these, and it's just like, it's astonishing to me, or scary. I don't know which one. That, you know, in the crisis, right? Some of the people that are the worst, scariest moments of people's lives, and, you know, I'm not trying to scare anyone, but, I mean,
It's just
it's a reality, and I'm a little concerned about
Yeah,
it.
it's the reality.
I'm a lot concerned.
Yes, agreed.
It is concerning. When we come to sharing resources with Whitestown or Carmel or Pike, Lebanon, how do those stations stand on numbers? Are they also short? Are they at industry standard?
Depends on the department that we're talking about. So most of our neighbors, either whether it be Pike Township, Carmel, Westfield, they're meeting industry standards. Whitestown, they're close to meeting industry standards. Lebanon, most oftentimes they're running like us. They need people as well. Just depends on the department. Also depends on kind of all the other things we've already mentioned. Do they have a lot of people injured or sick that they can drop to that minimum number, but their staffing levels are definitely much higher than what we are.
Yeah, it's hard because, you know, my knee-jerk reaction is, yep, let's get the guys right now. But we are kind of in the pickle of what's going on in our legislative motions for SB1 and how much money we'll be receiving for the entire budget. So as much as I'm sitting here going, yeah, we need more people, we need more money as well. I'm trying to think of creative, just the way you start thinking of creative solutions for something like this with, do we ever do like a part-time hire? Do we ever have any other options rather than a full-time hire, or bringing someone out of the volunteer, I don't know, people that have already been firefighters and maybe have walked away? Do we have any sort of option?
Yeah, and just to share, we do have one part-time firefighter that we've been able to maintain. Historically, we had a larger number of part-time firefighters. We currently only have one. It's Doug Gothier, retired from ZPD, that continues to do part-time work for us. It's one of those that whenever we did have a large number of part-time individuals, the hard part is can they commit to going to a recruit academy, that they're trained to the same levels? Are they getting the same training as the full-time firefighters? It's one of those that it's a discussion that we've definitely had. Is that what we could do to bridge the gap? Kind of your point, got to be having creative thoughts to try to get to the point of getting
Right.
the staffing we need.
I mean, I was immediately thinking of like the Army Reserve, or, you know, something where you have a reserve force until we have a number of income that we can pull from, or at least know what's happening.
I think what we can do is we can start having it, and I guess this is probably a broader conversation for the entire town, right? We need to start having these conversations now, before, because I'll be honest, last year during the budget cycle, for the town budget cycle, I was caught a little flat-footed, right? It was our first time, I didn't know what was going on. I would really like to start discussing this now and discussing it very openly with not only the mayor's administration, but amongst other counselors as well, because what this is going to come down to is a budgetary issue looking into 2026 and making sure we'll know better, hopefully by July, August, what SB1 looks like, right? And then we can move and pivot and adjust. But, you know, to that end, what can we do, right? It's, you know, it comes down to next year's budget and making sure that we get.
I think we have like 5 coming off the grant here pretty soon, is that right?
That's another.
Yeah, that's gonna be, I mean, I know there's trepidation on your side, and I know the town is working diligently to try to figure out the what-ifs. I mean, they're playing through different scenarios. I applaud them. we just have to figure it out. I mean,
Right.
we don't have a choice. We can't cut. We just simply can't cut.
That's a great point. And the SAFER grant that we applied for and received was a great fiscal gain to Zionsville. But if that didn't occur, you can see what these numbers are, because those firefighters are counted in here. And there could be a little bit of discussion about maybe funds could have been spent on other things, or they were spent on other things while we had that grant. Well, now, as you mentioned, Councilor Stein, is that the responsibility is now ours. We need to pick that up, and we need to be able to pay for those firefighters. And I ask that, not that you have said this, but others have said, oh, the grant, we've even had our firefighters say, well, it's almost been a little bit of a hindrance. Everybody says, well, we got to pick up that responsibility. But I think the grant was really a great thing for the community. The total number of dollars in the grant was, so for we got 5 firefighters for $1.4 million, and now we just need to make sure that we have fiscally planned to assume that responsibility. And we know, we're very much aware that we are not going to receive 9 firefighters in 2026. But we need to demonstrate the need and see how we can get that 1 or 2, or how we make those transitions. Councilor Sampson, as you mentioned, we are looking at that. I won't say we're revisiting the part-time role. The thing that gets very challenging for the part-time is all the fire gear is custom-made for individuals. So even if the individual is only working 10 hours a month, we still got to spend about $10,000 worth of total protective gear. We still have to send them out for medical testing, mental health support. It gets very, very cumbersome. And then if the individual says, I really want to go work somewhere else, I don't want to work there, now we've invested this. When we started off years ago, that's where we started, and we grew and grew and grew until we could hire some people. We're working also with the labor folks. The labor union, again, the best thing we could have is be able to hire a single employee. They're easier to maintain, easier to manage, to be able to provide all of their continuing education as well as initial training. But there may be some times for a period, okay, well, how do we get to that 9 over, I'm just throwing numbers out, next 3 to 5 years? Because I'll say in the upcoming meetings, you'll have this group present to you about future fire stations and the needs of our
Right.
community. What you've seen here today does not take any of that into account.
Yes, yeah.
I think that's why I'm concerned with meeting this need as much as we're going to have to meet that need. And there's that part of me that thinks that need is going to be more intense, more immediate.
I think Chief Potts and myself, as well as our consultants, Wolpert Group, will be looking forward to giving some presentations to the council and the safety board about some of that. And during some of the transition area, there is a plan and there is a path to get there, to be able to add some facilities, maybe look at redistributing some of the assets, our people and equipment, at least in a short term, maybe a 5 to 7 year period of time, then as we augment some of that staff. But those things only are able to be achieved if we start making some improvement on this 9 yet remaining.
I am on a committee that consults to the financial decisions for the mayor. So I have brought it up at the finance committee, and I'll just keep chirping away. So.
And Chief Gibbons has done a great job. The only thing I would add to that scenario he played with those 3 firefighters, as he went in, you've got the driver, that leaves 2 other individuals. If they have to stop, and we're blessed to have a fire hydrant in that community and stuff like that, now one of the firefighters gets off of the fire hydrant about 400 feet away from the house, has to stay on the fire hydrant. Now the engine pulls forward with just the driver and 1 firefighter. So now just 1 firefighter has to try and pull the hose off. And if that 1 firefighter were ever to go inside and get injured, trying to suppress the fire, things of that nature, the town, the fire administration, and we all are liable for that, because you should never put 2 people in without 2 being backed up. That's the scenario, in the worst-case scenario, that could happen here with only 3 firefighters, is that one of them has to get off in the fire hydrant, one of them's left by themselves to try and make difficult decisions to try and protect life and property.
We always talk about fires, but we forget the fire department, car accidents, 911, health emergencies, all that too. I'm constantly, since working in the village now, I'm constantly hearing trucks all day driving around. So I appreciate it.
Thanks for that presentation.
The last part of the presentation today is 2 different spreadsheets. And this is, if you recall back from our previous month's meeting, we intend to have these each month, but probably spend more time on a quarterly basis. We won't have all of March's data till hopefully our April meeting. But I'll call your attention to the 2024. That's our year-end budget. That's a line item breakdown. We find this a little bit easier from the fire department to be able to review and track spending in our different areas. Items to call to your attention in 2022. Well, we did finish the year at just under 2% of underspending. It does not take into account any encumbrance. And what I refer to in our supply line item there on page 1, you may see there's about $83,000, looks like, of unspent funds. Those funds are things that may have been purchased, but we didn't receive them and we haven't paid for them as of yet. So that's encumbered money, it's assigned, and that would get carried over. And you'll see that on the next sheet. Feel free to ask any questions. We'll try and address those. Another item there is on the back page in the 300 series. It looks like there's about $58,000 in fire station maintenance money that was unspent. Those funds were allocated for water repair. The water lines, as you've heard us talk before about current facility conditions at Fire Station 91 on 100 North Ford Road, continue to fail underneath the concrete floor, and we've had to install plastic PEX water lines through the building, outside the walls, just to make sure that there's warm water for the showers and potable drinking water throughout the fire stations. That was a temporary fix to be able to do that. Again, refreshing your memory again, the fire department operates out of different funds. Fire operating fund 1102 is normally all of our operating expenses. We have an equipment fund, which is 4444. It looks like that fund, again, underspent or had $2.6 million left over in funds. Keep in mind that is not leftover money. That money is encumbered as part of a $6 million apparatus contract, and that's where the fire trucks will be coming in over the next 3 years for delivery. So that's not $2.6 million of available funds to do things with. The other thing notable in that equipment fund is we can't use that on personnel. We can't take that 2.6 and say, well, let's delay some fire truck purchases, and can we use that money? That money is used as taxed, collected from the property taxes, put in a fund, and can only be used for capital expenditures.
Fire trucks.
Fire trucks, fire stations, cardiac
stations.
monitors, ambulance cots, defibrillators, those capital purchase items.
Chief, is there anywhere in this budget that shows encumbrances?
Not, well, you will see it on the next report, the 2025, because again, it's coming out of 2024. Cindy can't show it as expended because it's not been expended. They haven't written checks for it. But when you look at the 2025, kind of jump to that, you'll see in the 200 series on page 1, you'll see that $83,224. That's the dollars that have been carried forward in the fourth column over. So that's $83,000 that was carried over as an encumbrance from 2024 into 2025.
It shows the amounts on 2025's spreadsheet.
So that's where you would see those encumbrances coming forward. If you look on the 2024 sheet, in that column of additional appropriation encumbrances, those are from 2023 carried over into 2024.
Is it assumed that an unspent balance is encumbered?
No.
So I'm going to propose that we ask Cindy to add footnotes to the because this is helpful if you have this. But if somebody has one, it doesn't tell the full story.
It doesn't tell the rest of it. And if you're looking at fund balances, you could be looking at the equipment fund and say, well, wait a second, fire department's got $2.6+ million in there. What are they doing? Well,
Right.
We've got a $6 million commitment out here that's not coming due until the next 2 or 3 years. And you're
Exactly right. But a layman's going to look at this and go, they got all kinds of money. And truly, you don't. So I think it would be prudent of us to add footnotes to the bottom of this that suggest here are the
Total
encumbered, well, you can even do it encumbered by
Yeah.
fund, because there's only a handful of funds.
Correct. And I would
It's
say,
not
you
a
know,
lot of work.
and ours is a little bit more challenging with some of the equipment items we have coming in, but I would imagine Lance and other people who have projects that they carry over year to year have big balances as well. And we've talked about this at the legislature just recently. The Indiana Fire Chiefs Association had visited there for a legislative day, and we shared that because, again, the legislators said, oh, wait a second, we see these fund reports on OpenGov and stuff like that. You guys have all these monies. Well, you're right, and someone could say that of Zionsville. Wait a second, you guys got $2.6 million. Why do you need to do this? Well, again, it's classified funds, can't use it for people, and it's equipment, and it's spoken for.
Right.
And that just gets us the fire trucks that we were supposed to have 3 years ago. And, soon toward the end of this year, you guys will see a presentation from Chief Gibbons that's going to come in and say, hey, we need to look at and we need to plan for the replacement of our ladder truck. And that's going to cost $2.5 million by itself, but we won't see it for 4 more years. So, Councilor Stein, I couldn't agree with you more that there is so much more to the financial report. Not that finance and records do anything wrong, but there's so much more
Right.
detail that's there that helps explain the story that's
And I think
valid.
it's an easy fix. I think, if there's a lot of work for somebody to do this, then this is sufficient, but it just isn't as transparent as it could be, and I'm not at all suggesting anybody's trying to hide anything. It just doesn't tell the full story, that's all.
Correct. And I would even go further to say that Finance and Records requires of the department heads, if we wish to encumber funds, it has to be greater than $5,000, have to have a contract or a purchase order in place, and they require us to have a copy of that before the end of the year, file all that, and they track all of that stuff. So as we carry over that $83,000, I can't change my mind now in 2025 and say, oh, I don't want to buy it from Joe Stein Fire Gear, I want to buy it from Jason Potts. That money can only be spent on that one purchase order or contract for that one thing, period.
Yep. that
And if
makes
it's not,
sense.
then it just rolls over. The money doesn't go away. My firefighters always ask me too, well, where does that money go if you don't use it? Well, it rolls back in and becomes part of the cash balance at the end of the year. But I can guarantee you, every one of those encumbrance items going forward, we have a contract or a purchase order for an item we're waiting to come in
Yep.
and be completed.
That's what you said, it was a $6 million apparatus, but we only have 2.5. So are you anticipating each year pulling some back? Is that how we're getting to the 6 million? And what happens if something comes early? Is it it's being built, or you don't accept it early? They know that this is their completion date. I was just wondering what would happen if it came before we had the full amount.
Great question. We are probably to the point where our salespeople hate hearing from me. About monthly or quarterly, I'm calling asking for updates. So we track that. Not only are we carrying over money from 2024, but we carried money over from 2023. We put that up, and that's how we get to the $6 million. It's like 5.8 million for the fire truck purchase. And then we plan to make sure that as they come in, like at the end of this year, we'll see one of those 5 fire trucks come in, and we'll have that tankers, $400,000 available cash. We'll spend that. Next year's budget, because the equipment replacement fund, this is the other thing, I don't want to get too far off in the budget. People look at the budget and they say, oh, well, we've got these cash balances and our budgets look balanced. Like our equipment replacement fund is a rate-driven fund. 3 1/3 cents of all the assessed property value come into that. So that fund will always generate money. But you can see like this year, we can't count that towards using it for personnel stuff. We have to carry that balance forward. So next year, we will get a rather large chunk of money coming in. So a portion of that will be balanced for the fire truck. Long-winded response, President Sampson, is that we watch that very closely to make sure we time to make sure that they're there. We know that the 2 fire trucks that cost $1.2 million apiece will not come in until the end of 2026 or 2027, and the cash will all be there to be able to pay for those. And we couldn't have signed the contract to purchase them unless we had the financial means to be able to pay for it. The other benefit that we have, the end of this year, we'll celebrate this, but the Zionsville Fire Department does not owe money to anything. That will probably change as we look at building fire stations. We can't do that all the time, although Fire Station 93 we built and paid for in cash. We didn't bond any money for it. Fire Station 92 was an inherited bond
Right.
from Union Township before government modernization. But again, there are other communities that go out there and they try and purchase these things, but they also go out and they borrow the money. And that's a way to get there, but you're paying fiscal financial managers a bunch of money, and you're paying interest rates on that as well. So we try and be a very, very conservative method to get there. So everything we buy, we make sure we have the funds available, and we pay for it in full when we have it, and then we maintain it and get a good, useful life out of it.
Is there anywhere else in the budget that you could tighten down and find money to help with adding another person? Is there any room in some of your line items?
Short answer, I would say no, but I guess the explanation would be is that we look at this on a monthly basis. We track this sheet. Actually, this sheet is probably more up to date than the claims forms you guys receive, because this is claims fleet services. So they got a fire truck down, they need to order parts. As soon as they order the part for $1,500, we put it in our budget sheet, we track it, and we show it's expended. You know, it's going out. Now, the bill hasn't come in, the part hasn't come in, but it's a commitment we have, so we track that. And we look at that very closely, and then we watch every one of my lines. I share with the deputy chiefs that are here, as also Josh Frost, that I maintain 20% spending per quarter. They can do that. And I leave 5% per quarter to be able to adjust other things so that when fleet services skyrockets and goes over their 20%, now I got to pull funds. And that's what you'll hear from department heads or Cindy asking for some reappropriations. I can move money within the 300 series by myself, talking to Cindy and tracking all of that. We come back to the council and I didn't move money from 200 to 300s or from 1. So we look at that. The other thing we receive from labor as well as our firefighters is, well, hey, the fire stations need this, or we'd really like to have that. Last year we were able to purchase new chairs for Fire Station 93. It's a one-time purchase, but Fire Station 93 was built in, it's 13 years old. When we opened the fire station, we bought used chairs at a Goodwill or a government surplus place. They've never had new chairs to sit in, so we spent money on that, but it was a one-time purchase. And that's where we were able to take $2,500 from this line item, $2,500 from that line item. The challenging part, could we tighten our belt a little bit and say not do those things? Yeah, but the living conditions or these other things are not going to be met, but also it's not a reoccurring fund that I can have the money available to. The biggest things that make me nervous and us nervous every day is our fuel line items all over the place, our vehicle maintenance line items eating us alive, because our fleet's old and we haven't got the newer trucks in. Our overtime rate is eating us, and we can get into another conversation about.
Well, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah.
Where are we at on overtime? What's going on with overtime? Because I know that this is one of the ways that you guys are trying to mitigate some of the personnel issues is by offering overtime, or at least I thought it was. And then I heard maybe overtime has been brought back a little bit.
Yeah, we try and balance our overtime budget, which in this year, I'm leaving 2024's budget sheet and looking to 2025. Our overtime line item is $285,000. Of which we have spent in excess of 25%, and we haven't even finished the quarter yet. One of the challenges we've had is we've had that spike of significant quantity of employees off work for light-duty injuries, whether that be work-related or civilian. As I mentioned earlier, we just 2 weeks ago celebrated 10 days of not having anybody injured. The other thing we've had that has kind of run rampant across the schools and stuff, we had a lot of sick firefighters during the month. So until we see ourselves in June, I would expect us to spend probably 70 to 80% of our overtime budget in the first 6 months. It gets better because we have those five recruits come out of the academy, and we'll have a little bit of room there. Go ahead.
You need to ask for an additional appropriation?
We may need to. The other thing that the previous mayors and councils have challenged staff as well is, well, before you come and ask for additional monies, look and see where you are at each individual line. So I think that'd be an appropriate conversation. I said a quarterly check-in. The other component that we're looking at here, this is all expense-driven. And one of the things we hope to do for the first time ever is at a quarterly basis, again, hopefully in the month of April, within a month or two after the quarter ends, to come back and talk about expenses in depth, but also where are our revenues? Are we getting the tax money? Are we getting the income tax and property taxes? Where are we with our ambulance receipts? I think we'll have a little bit of good news to share with you on our ambulance receipts. But if you remember last year, we also raised our rates because we haven't raised our rates in ambulance transportation for 7+ years. So I think there's a little bit of a balancing there that we'll be able to look at. And that would be an appropriate time on a quarterly basis for us, Counselor, to look at that and say, okay, well, how are things going? And talk through that so that we don't get to November and I come to you and say, well, we're out of money and we can't afford to do this. I'd rather keep you informed along the way and make some of those decisions earlier.
Yeah, I would really, me personally, I'd like to have that conversation earlier, right? So that if you need to ask for more money and additional appropriation for things like overtime so that we can mitigate some of these staffing challenges, I would like to do that now so that we're not burnt out later. So if we could discuss that in April, if that's going to be an option or not.
Happy to prepare for that. And then just a quick wrap up. The 2025, again, is just a more narrow view in the first quarter expenditure. Again, as I mentioned, the overtime appears to be the biggest item that's currently challenging us. We do also track on the 2024 and also the 2025, the ARPA fund items is the last item that was there. The IT equipment is a video conferencing system that actually the IT department paid for and has installed. That project is now complete. The equipment you see carried over line, that last year was paid for our new SCBA's, breathing apparatus, and then the last item is the fire station planning and design work, which is the fire station feasibility study that Wolpert is wrapping up for us, as well as we're doing a station expansion at Fire Station 92. We're moving out the bay 10 feet to make sure that the new fire trucks will fit, so that we don't have to order special custom short fire trucks.
For the ARPA funds, when do they have to be spent by?
The end of 2025.
So we anticipate all of that being paid out in
Yes.
2025?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, those funds could not be used for anything else. It's more of a locked-in line.
Right.
And if you or your fellow counselors ever have any questions along the way, please feel free. Jason Potts, myself, Tiffany Howard, our administrative manager, are the three that really work in the budget every day and are more than happy to answer any questions you have, and maybe a 30,000-foot level or down to the individual level about individual claims you may see come before you in the council meetings for approval and stuff. We're happy to answer any of those questions.
Thank you. I know that was a in-depth conversation, so, but an important one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have no old business and no new business. Does anybody have any other matters?
No. April 11th, we're doing the firefighter climb. So I think there will be 20 on training that day.
Yeah, I believe there's 21 total doing, and this is at the Fire Department Instructors Conference here in Indianapolis. It's the largest gathering of firefighters in North America where they do continuing education for hands-on training. But on that April 11th day is a stair climb memorial to signify climbing the towers. And we have 21 individuals, including some office staff, some civilian staff, some firefighters, as well as Counselor Evan Norris.
I'll be there.
Good luck to you on that, Evan.
Yeah, it is grueling, to say the least, but a very memorable experience and very solemn at the same time. I mean, it's awesome. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I appreciate that everyone gets training time for that, because it is the most physically demanding thing I think we can
Are you
do.
doing your Stairmaster?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Been hitting the stairs hard.
Okay. All right, well, with that, we will, anybody want to move to adjourn? I will move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the next regular safety board meeting is scheduled for April 21st, 2025 at 8 a.m., basically immediately at the conclusion of the town council meeting, which begins at 7:30.